Hello, just a quick in between. Not so much to do with symbolism, maybe, but we are going to have more of that next time. I think exploring cultural tradition in African daily life might add to the perspective as we attempt to get a deeper understanding of this symbolism. These bigger black termites, the Macrotermes, are the kind of termites that farm mushrooms. These mushrooms, the Termitomyces, might have stood model for some of the symbolism of Asian iconography and architecture. And please go see my first episodes for more on that. These fungi are connected to the farming compartments within the nest via a long underground stem. This peculiar wire-like stem ends in a snake head-like cap as they breach through the hard outer crust of the nest. This, together with the fact that the snakes, and in particular the king cobra, prefer abandoned termite mounds to rest or lay their eggs, is possibly the origin of the chthonic or subterranean snake deities, which we see all over the South Indian and especially in Nagaland iconography. Similar belief can be found in many African cultures. Snakes belong to the netherworld below. Often they are considered incarnations of ancestors. But let's look at the mushrooms. Like I said before, snakes actually need a video series of their own, since they always had a very special place within mythology. The only mention of snakes and termite mounds that stands out that I have found is the occurrence of a tiny blind snake that lives mainly underground and eats termite and other insects. So far, I have not found anything that points in the direction of a connection between mushrooms and umbrellas or divinity and the African continent. Umbrellas are associated with nobility like anywhere else. I found a picture of a voodoo temple from Benin, West Africa, but I have no information on what or if even that umbrella on top has any meaning or in the slightest connected to mushrooms or termite mounds. Even the shape of the temple does allow some speculation, but that is about it. A bit more on voodoo later. Ethnomycologists report it is often very difficult to gather data. This specific knowledge concerns harvest and processing of the wild fungi and has been guarded by the women. They are, together with the help of their children, the ones who do or did the actual gathering. The system of gradual transmission of knowledge on gathering and use of fungi in medicinal potions and charms may have stood the test of time for a very long, but the disruption of modern times causes the risk of it disappearing within only a few generations. The decline of traditional knowledge is general and it happens very fast. Next to nutritious and medicinal value, they are used for fabrication of dye, for example. And as is usual, artisans keep their knowledge largely for themselves. As far as I have read now, also women form secret societies in Africa, just like men do. This may be an additional reason why researchers have a hard time gathering their field material. I managed to find a few mentions of Termitomyces in the lore of the Yoruba people. Yoruba are one of the larger African ethnic groups covering parts of Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and Sierra Leone, where their history of settlement can be traced back into the last half of the first millennium BC. Many Yoruba suffered the African-European transatlantic slave trade. In one story, a woman who cannot conceive children seeks help from the Orunmula or priest. He advises her to bring a certain number of offerings, and eventually she becomes numerous offspring in the form of the smallest species of the Termitomyces, the Microcarpus, a white little mushroom that carpets the soil above the underground termite colonies. In Yoruba lore, this species represents a large population, which is the same as fertile population. Charms are made from it by traders to attract customers, and it is part of a remedy used against venereal disease. Another story speaks of a man followed by ill luck. After visiting Orunmula, he performed 7 ritual cleansings on 7 different spots. After 9 days, on these 7 spots, the Termitomyces robustus grows. This species can emerge from up to 7 sources in close vicinity or on the same mound. It is put into lucky charms. It is also used to prepare an antidote for a spell which has been put upon a woman in order to prevent adultery. The latter really does sound like a remedy of which I can imagine women to keep it very secret indeed. And a last anecdote on the Termitomyces globulus tells a similar story on the origin of the 7 groups in which they appear. Hunters would use this kind to add to a magical potion that was rubbed onto a spear, bow and arrow, and was assumed to drowse their prey. Just like in Asia, mushrooms appear as soon as rain season is around, and they belong to the seasonal diet of rural communities. In times of scarcity towards summer, they provide what was in Burkina Faso, for example, referred to as meat of the poor. Dried, they still consist of 15% of proteins. The fungus-forming termite, genus Macrotermes, enriches the soil in the mounds with the minerals needed to increase growth and productivity of the fungi. There is a clear difference in mineral value between the mounds of the Macrotermes and most other kinds of the 1,000+ different species of termites that can be found on the African continent. This is a nice example of symbiotic relationship of the termites and their food. I might as well say the symbiosis of the fungus and its vehicle. Because it is not clear who is forming who. Several species of fungi have adapted traits to facilitate a relation with insects. I am sure most of you have heard about the fungus that turns ants and other insects into zombies. I found another interesting example by which fungi mimic termite eggs up to a degree that not only size but also the outside texture of eggs is mimicked as well as the scent in order to receive excellent circumstances for them to thrive within the protective environment of the mounds and under the care of the worker termites. I think we have only understood a fraction of how fungi deal with their environments. It is the same genus Macrotermes, the big fungus farmers, that is favored the most for human consumption. The gathering of the mushrooms may then be a job for women. The gathering of the termites is something in which the complete community will participate in. The edible termites not only serve a nutritional purpose, the queens will be consumed especially by nobility to call upon benevolence. They are highly valued medicine for malnourished children and to improve fertility. The kids are sent out to fish for soldier termites. Sometimes only the heads would be eaten, dried, pounded, and added to cake. And there are a number of recipes documented, if not for human consumption. The insects are often harvested to feed poultry as well. Recent studies can be found on termites' capabilities to produce specific immunity agents and antibacterial substances in a similar way that bees do in order to prevent infection in the colony. In case of the fungus growing termites, they produce saliva that is capable of eliminating a secondary fungal infection in the nest, which might cause crop loss. The medicinal properties of termites is apparently, in times of an almost depletion of effective antibiotic treatments, a promising new field of research.
You find that mostly pregnant women, they eat it a lot. Because of is it iron or something like that they'll be needing. You find some people going to these termite hills, digging and getting this kind of soil. In Zambia, in Livingstone, you can buy it from the market.
There are numerous documentations of a widespread tradition among many African cultures in which the clay of termite mounds is eaten. Consumption of what is called pregnancy clay is widespread in South-Equatorial Africa with an established market. Sometimes, like in the Kenya region, the connection to female fertility is so strong that men and old women will avoid the clay at any cost. The eating of soil may seem something incredulous for a Westerner. This practice, however, is not just restricted to Africa alone. We find it all over the globe, and there is more than a religious inspired doctrine to it. Eating earth turns out to have amazing benefits. Study of mammals and birds from different places in the world show that those animals consuming plant material practice geophagy in order to neutralize the toxins present in a lot of exotic vegetation. Geophagy is not just limited to eating termite mound soil. Any kind of earth will do for the animals, although once valuable sources of it are located, of course, those will be preferred. It has long been assumed that this phenomena has to be explained as being a natural unconscious urge to level up mineral content in the body, such as salt, sodium chloride, calcium carbonate or lime, copper, iron or zinc and more. Although rich soil naturally increases mineral levels in the body, it is still debated if this is the reason for geophagy to occur. Newer theories point out that it is the clay particles in the earth what it is all about. Kaolinites, one of the three main components of clay, has the property of absorbing toxins piled up in the intestinal system. So in order to detox, animals of all sorts would eat dirt because of the clay particles in it. The healing workings of clay is twofold. Although all kinds have absorbing properties, they are not all antibacterial. Some of you may be familiar with the use of bentonite clay in cosmetic therapy. It is applied as a facial mark to cleanse out pores. And bentonite, for example, is relatively rare and highly valued in naturopathy for its medicinal and detoxifying properties. Both Pliny the Elder and Dioscorides mention the consumption of volcanic rock as a remedy, but you can but you can find mention in old scientific works from all over the world, in which eating mineral is considered very effective treatment for different ailments. Also externally, the medicinal value is well known and documented. And if I recall well, the Ukrainian population, which was displaced because of Chernobyl incident in the USSR of 1986, they were given zeolite pills in order to remove radioactive heavy metals from the body, just to show that there is an actual scientific basis to this ancient tradition. There are historical reports of Caribbean slave owners reporting the quote-unquote obsessive consumption of dirt by slaves, causing illness. Geophagy has long time been regarded as an illness itself, only because the colonists refused to understand it was a solution rather to an earlier problem, namely intoxication through malnourishment. I found another reference to the value of termite mounds for indigenous Africans, as recorded by Portuguese slave traders in this case. The records mention the consumption of termite clay, but also the religious, spiritual value of them. The traders figured out how these termite mounds represent a deep connection to the ancestors and spirits world, and by destroying them or swearing oath of destruction on them, they had found a means to easier subjugate their human merchandise. While assembling this video, I was still surfing around to read some more on the subject of geophagy, and I believe that's the proper way to pronounce it. Seems, that the whole world was eating clay or soil or dirt at some point, not too long ago. There have been records of this since the Sumerians, for health reasons. But when doing research on a swastika, I have encountered several mentions as well, and whole articles and studies dedicated to medicinal consumption of mineral or dirt all over the ancient world. During the European Renaissance, Terra sigillata was a medicine that was used over here as well. The seal would indicate the location it came from. This was new to me. I have never before heard of the practice of administering clay pills to the sick in Europe. And when I do research on the term Terra sigillata, most of what will pop up is on potter's marks, more than anything. It frankly made me laugh, because I was reminded of the fact that Europeans started importing and grinding up real Egyptian mummies because they believed it was highly medicinal stuff, while in reality the Arabians or the Arabian recipes recommending mumia were actually referring to a specific kind of bitumen. Apparently around the 12th century, this expensive mumia or bitumen became hard to obtain, and suddenly a mistranslation occurred. Sneaky merchants, if you ask me, but whatever that, I'm heading off topic. Just one more thing on this before I close off. I found a story of this man called Stumpf, who used white clay to treat disease in Asia, saving over 1 million people. This man died in 1930. Why does nobody speak about him? Why no mention, no praise, no nothing? I can imagine already something with that, yes? Anyways, I thought I'd throw this in as well, but next time it will be of another caliber, with more on religion and ritual. And then there's Egypt. Thanks for watching, eh?